When is the best time of the day to indulge in sweets without worrying about diabetes? Actually, I will rephrase that because this intro does not go with philosophy of our channel. We're all about health, not about indulgence. So I'm going to rephrase that. So when is the best time of the day for your body to metabolize sweets with less risk for diabetes? Now I like it much more. Welcome back. I'm Dr. Maria Azizian, a board certified general surgeon and IFM-certified functional medicine physician. Today, we will be talking about a very interesting, actually very fresh, brand new article that talks about that timing of the day where it's easiest for an average person to metabolize sweets. But first of all, I would like to make a little disclaimer that this talk is not about condoning or promoting indulgence in sweets. It is about how to control our cravings to a degree. Because what I see, and I think that we can all see broadly, three groups of people in relationships to sweets. There are people who just indulge and don't care about their health, and unfortunately, they pay for that with obesity and bouquet of many other medical issues. There are others, minority, unfortunately, who are able to restrict themselves to a very rare, maybe a few times a year, piece of cake or something like that. And the rest of us are in between, meaning that sometimes we can say no and sometimes we do indulge. The goal of our channel is to promote health. And one thing that we talk about on this channel is sugar. We actually, I think, talk about sugar a lot. And it's interesting that both in conventional medicine and functional medicine, sugar is considered an enemy. And unfortunately, it is so because it's at the basis of so many medical diseases, and it's essentially a gateway substance to metabolic syndrome, to gut dysbiosis and leaky gut, and neuro diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, heart attacks, and everything else. Essentially, you can say that most of the diseases are related to our foods, and one of the biggest issues with our foods is sugar. So I'm not condoning. However, I think that what I hope that this video helps with is to how to regulate your craving to a degree, because sometimes we just have a craving for chocolate or craving for a pastry, or we all have our things that we indulge in, and how to do it with the minimum damage to our body and to our health. Before I get into this very interesting article, I also would like to share a personal tip that I think is quite easy to accomplish. I think that the best when you are in a social setting, or not necessarily in a social setting, let's say you are alone with a donut or with a slice of cake that somehow arrived at your footsteps or at your kitchen table and you're really craving it. I think the best thing is to eat only 30% of it. Why is that? Why exactly 30%? Because when you eat first, let's say if you only eat 10% of the sweet, then you may still want more because, as you know, the first bite is the best bite. So everybody sort of feels that taste. We all feel the taste was the first bite. The second bite sort of reassures you in a way. So when you get to 30%, I think that you've accomplished to have the best of the flavor that this cake or cupcake or whatever can provide for you, and yet you are already somewhat satisfied, and you should be really satisfied at this point. I think that that's very helpful because it could significantly help you on cutting down, especially on empty calories from bad foods, and yet not feel deprived. The ideal goal is, of course, to eat 0% of donuts and cakes and etc. However, again, people are not robots, and most people would not just follow recommendations just because it's good for you. It would have been too easy. So unfortunately, that is not the case. But I think that 30% is a magic number. It's very, very helpful because it still gives you some level of satisfaction with eating these unhealthy foods. Another thing that you can do, you can actually start just as with slow cutting down. For example, we'll use a slice of cake as an example. You can start with eating 75%. and then go to 50% and then go to 30%, because a lot of us eat 100% because we're conditioned from our childhood to eat everything. And I want to make it easy for you. It's okay to throw away food, because essentially, if you're eating 100% of an unhealthy food, such as cake or donut or Twinkie or whatever you're eating, then you're essentially using your body as a trash bin. So if you're going to throw this food away, just throw it in a real trash bin and not inside of your body. And I know some people may not be happy with me about saying of wasting food, but I do think that it's better to waste it rather than to cause multiple medical problems and essentially create your body as wasteland of a sort. So that's my personal advice: 30% of a bad food if you have to eat it. And also, it's 30% of only one thing. So it doesn't mean that you have 3 brownies and you ate most of one of them, and that's 30%. No, you only take one brownie and eat 30% of it. And once it becomes a habit, it's actually very satisfying. You may not even want more. I can say that on personal experience. So that's my little advice. So now let's talk about this very interesting article. So this article has several key points here. So first of all, they took 8,800 people, so almost 9,000 people without diabetes. Again, these people did not have diabetes. And then they followed these people for approximately, on average, 6 years. The end point, the end sort of measurement or goal of that study was to see whether they developed diabetes or not based on their eating habits. And what they did in that study, and by the way, that study is in the journal Diabetes Care, and I'll put a link below in a description. So what they did in that study, they looked at the eating patterns of these 9,000 people in terms of the time of the day where they got their calories. And what they looked at each meal, they looked at the energy intake, which is the calories of the meal. And also they looked at the glycemic load. What is glycemic load? Glycemic load is basically quantity and quality of carbohydrates. And quantity, you understand, and quality is related to glycemic index. What is a glycemic index? Glycemic index is a measure that ranks foods based on how much and how quickly they raise blood sugar levels after eating. And it goes from 0 to 100. For example, an average slice of cake has glycemic index of 75. That's quite high. And for comparison, broccoli has glycemic index of 10. Interestingly, that glucose, pure glucose, has a glycemic index of 100, so the highest glycemic index, which makes sense. So they looked at these parameters, and then the end point, like I mentioned, was the development of diabetes, and they tried to figure out what was the best time of the day that was associated with less probability of developing diabetes. And these are the following times that they looked at. They looked at early morning from 6 a.m. to 8:59 a.m. Then late morning from 9 a.m. to 11:59 a.m. So almost to noon. Then afternoon from 12 to 5:59 p.m. And then evening from 6 to 11:59 p.m. And finally night from midnight to 5:59 a.m. And their finding was that the best time was late morning from 9 to essentially 12 p.m. to noon. So that was the best time where you can sort of get away perhaps with eating more calories and more sweets. Again, I just want to repeat myself. This is not an invitation to indulge in sweets now from 9 to 12. However, the body is better equipped to process high calorie and high sweets foods at that time. I think that's a very good finding, especially if you would like to control your craving, let's say you want to eat a slice of pie that your grandmother baked, and you have that flexibility of a time, then you can just time it so you can have 30% of that in that time frame, and not, let's say, in the evening at 7 and 8 p.m., which is not a good time. All other times, by the way, were equal. This was the only time that was considered favorable. And also, I would like to mention that the study was 50-50 male and female, and also the average age was 39. So very interesting study. I hope that it's helpful in planning your um, little indulgences. And I hope again that you decrease them and continue with a healthy approach to your body. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time. Bye-bye.